They say the scariest things happen at night, but I disagree. Sometimes the worst day of your life begins like any other morning. I woke up to sunlight slanting through cheap blinds, the smell of too bitter coffee, and a tiny vibration beneath my pillow. My phone. It was still early. I should have ignored it. Instead, I reached for the screen and saw the text that would change everything. Don't trust him. Meet me at Pier 17. Come alone. I lay frozen in bed, heart running wild, brain spinning with one thought: Sophie. This was her style: drama, mystery, a pangshang for burning bridges. But Sophie hadn't texted me in 2 years. Not since the day she disappeared. I'd spent hundreds of hours imagining what I would do if I heard from her again. And yet, when her ghost surfaced on an ordinary Tuesday, all I did was stare at the cracked screen and wait for it to make sense. It never did. My shift at the hospital started in an hour. I dragged myself into uniform, put on my best neutral face, and tried to convince myself it was just another prank, some scam, a wrong number. But deep down, it didn't feel that way. I felt it in my bones. Something was coming. I spent the entire shift distracted. I dropped a tray during rounds, snapped at a first year for letting a patient's fall run dry, and missed 2 calls from unknown number. Each time the phone lit up, a chill ran up my spine. What if it really was her? What if this was my chance to know the truth? When my shift ended, I stood in the staff locker room staring at my reflection. Tired eyes. Unruly brown hair. I had work to do, the apartment needed cleaning, I was supposed to be on call again tomorrow, but all I could think about was Pier 17. What if I didn't go? What if I did? At the last second, I stuffed a change of clothes into my bag, tucked my comforting old Swiss Army knife into my pocket, a gift from Sophie, years ago, and walked out into the dark. The docks were empty except for the slap of water and the distant foghorn of a ferry I'd never take. I was early. I sat on the edge of a cold wooden bench, phone in hand, pretending I felt braver than I did. The minutes stretched. Another text. Almost there. I tried to steady my breathing. My mind was all over. Sophie in her red raincoat, Sophie laughing at inside jokes, Sophie with secrets in her eyes. A footstep behind me. I spun, nearly lost my balance. But it wasn't Sophie. It was a man, tall, dark coat, careful movements, as if he'd been waiting, watching. His eyes found mine, cold and strangely familiar. Myra Fraser. His voice was low, guarded. Who are you? My own voice sounded foreign. He glanced at his phone, then back at me. Name's Elias. Sophie trusted you once, he said softly, so I'm trusting you now, but we need to move. My brain screamed not to follow, but I did, cold and desperate. We ducked into the fog by the older boats until we were alone. What do you want from me? He shook his head. It's not what I want. It's what Sophie wanted. 2 years ago, she got mixed up in something she couldn't control. You're the only person who can help clear her name. I wanted to demand answers, but Elias looked shattered, like a man who'd spent years running from ghosts. He fiddled with a flash drive, pressing it into my palm. There are people you can't trust. If you care about Sophie, start asking questions. Don't go to the police yet. And whatever you do, don't tell Nathan Carter you saw me. He vanished before I could protest. The city seemed different on my way home, every dark alley a threat, every passing car a shadow. I got home, bolted the door, dropped my bag on the faded carpet and just stood there, shaking. I clicked open the files on the drive. Names, dates, coded emails. Dirty secrets. Messages between Sophie's boss and someone marked only as EW. My hands were shaking so badly I barely managed to read. That night, I barely slept. For the first time in 2 years, Sophie felt closer than ever, and also farther away. Who was EW? Why did everyone keep warning me about the wrong people? How deep did this go? And then, as dawn broke, my phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. Are you awake? Some people bury their past. Mine sleeps just beneath my skin, always threatening to resurface. That morning, After another text from the unknown number, I realized I couldn't just ignore it anymore. If Sophie really was reaching out, or if someone was pretending for reasons I couldn't fathom, I had to know. The hospital never felt so suffocating. Everything was mechanical, smiling at patients, charting vitals, pretending my life wasn't held together with numb routine. I kept checking my phone, expecting the screen to light up with another message, some new instruction or clue, or maybe just Sophie, at last, telling me she was okay. Instead, I got a surprise when Nathan Carter cornered me in the hospital break room. He looked exhausted. There was something predatory about how he watched me, cautious, like a cat circling a half-opened door. "Myra, do you have a minute?" His tone was gentle, but my walls snapped into place. "I'm on shift, Nathan. Is this about the police again?" He hesitated, twisting his coffee cup. "They're not done asking questions. About Sophie. About us. I just wondered if there's something you haven't shared." His words hit like sleet. Was he fishing for answers or warning me? If I did, I would have said, "I want her found, same as you." Nathan looked unconvinced. There was a flicker in his eyes, a mixture of guilt and fear. "Let me know if you remember anything," he said. He left. The nerves in my hands tingled. I wondered how much he really knew. After my shift, Elias texted, "Meet me at Sophie's old apartment. Bring the flash drive." His urgency was contagious. Night was falling. The city felt sharper, more dangerous. I let myself into Sophie's place for the first time since she vanished. The air was stale, faintly lemon-scented, the same soap she always insisted on buying. Elias was waiting by the window. He didn't look up. He pushed a battered notebook toward me. "She wrote this the week before she disappeared. Read." Inside, her handwriting was frantic, snatches of paranoia, scribbled warnings, dates encircled in angry pen. The phrase "EW gave me no choice" appeared again and again. And one conclusion, torn at the edge. "They're watching. If anything happens to me, it's because of EW." I looked up sharply. "Who is EW?" Elias stared into the dusk. "I don't know for certain. Maybe someone in risk at her firm. But these initials, these dates, everything points to something happening at the company that week. You said you found coded emails." I nodded, pulling the flash drive from my pocket. There are references to Shoreline and a planned handoff. Nathan's name comes up. Is he involved? Elias shook his head, jaw tense. "Not directly. But there's a pattern. Sophie trusted him. Maybe too much." I thought of Nathan's nervousness, the way he always avoided straight answers. "We need to go deeper," Elias said. "Check her final emails. There's a contact. She called someone on May 22nd, the day she vanished." We spent the next hour combing archives. It was painstaking. I read Sophie's last messages until the words blurred. Threats, apologies, panicked requests for help. Patterns started to emerge. A date, a train station, and the word exit. My head throbbed with exhaustion. I stood to leave, needing air. Elias gently touched my shoulder. "Be careful, Myra. If you're in deep." Something in his tone was different. Like he truly, deeply cared. Or maybe he just didn't want another name on his conscience. As I shut the apartment door, I caught a dark figure standing by the curb. Watching. Waiting. I quickened my step, heart hammering in my chest. Back at home, I tried to shower off the day. The notebook Sophie left burned in my mind. Had she known she would disappear? Had she trusted someone and been set up? Just as I was drifting into uneasy sleep, my phone buzzed again. It was the unknown number. This time, not a text. It was a photograph. Sophie, looking scared, standing outside an abandoned train station, beside a man whose face was hidden in shadow. Below, a message. "Find her, or she'll stay lost forever." Sometimes, what scares you most isn't what's hiding in the dark. It's what you'll do if the darkness looks back and recognizes you. That night, After I saw Sophie's haunted face on my phone, fear wasn't enough to stop me. I had to know what she'd left behind at the train station. The station at the city's edge hadn't seen a train in decades. Rust crept over the gates. Vines choked the schedule board. Graffiti turned the wooden benches into confessionals. I went alone, as instructed, but I clutched my knife in one pocket and Sophie's faded notebook in the other. It was 2 a.m. My footsteps echoed, harsh and loud, as I moved through dust and abandoned ticket booths. My phone vibrated again. A new message. Locker 17. Code 2205. Before I could fully process, a chill crawled up my spine. Someone was nearby. I scanned the platforms, empty, but for a shadow pacing near the far wall. The shadow didn't move closer. I found locker 17 and entered the code with trembling fingers. Inside, a battered manila envelope, a flash drive, and a single Polaroid. Sophie again, cheeks streaked with tears, sitting on a hospital bed. The date in the lower corner matched the week she vanished. My heart pounded. It felt like she was reaching out, begging me to keep going, even as the photo's edges shook in my grip. As I left the station, headlights swept through the rain. Someone was watching after all. I ducked behind a pillar, texting Elias as fast as my hands would allow. Found something. Meet me now. Not safe. Elias replied in seconds. Get to my place. Take the alley, change your route. I ran the city's backstreets like a hunted animal, finally pounding on Elias's door, breathless with panic. He answered in a robe, eyes wide with shock and recognition. I think someone was about to ambush me at the station, I managed between breaths. He glanced out the window, every sense on alert. You're lucky. They aren't playing games. Let's see what you found. Inside, I handed him the envelope and the drive. Elias scanned the Polaroid and his expression darkened. I took this photo, he admitted after a beat. I was trying to help Sophie. After she had a panic attack at work, she asked to be checked into a private wing. She said she was being followed. My blood froze. But you never told the police. Why? I wanted to. But the next day, she was gone. When they finally questioned me, someone at the company pressured me to stay silent. He met my eyes. Nathan's name is in these files too. Whatever happened to Sophie, it started at that office. I wish I'd protected her better. I pressed on. Then we'll protect her now. And each other. We loaded the drive's contents onto Elias's laptop. The files opened slowly, company emails, encrypted folders, inward audits, one folder labeled Project Shoreline. One video. I hesitated, then pressed play. It was Sophie, speaking into her phone in hushed tones. If you see this, Myra, it means I'm already gone. EW knows everything. Project Shoreline. It's illegal. They're using employee data, selling it. If something happens, it goes all the way to the board. I trusted Nathan. But I think he betrayed me. She paused, fear trembling in her voice. Elias, if you're with Myra, please help her. Don't let them bury this with me. As her image faded, my insides twisted with grief and panic. Guilt warred with hope. She was asking me to finish what she couldn't. I barely slept. By morning, there was a police car circling my block. Detective Caldwell came by the ER, her eyes sharp. Myra, has anyone tried to contact you about Sophie's case? Any new information? My mind spun. Was Caldwell part of this, or did she truly want to help? I lied. Nothing new, detective. If there was, you'd be the first to know. She studied me for a long moment before walking away. I hated lying, but until I knew who to trust, I had no choice. At the end of my shift, Elias was waiting outside, slumped in the driver's seat, rain streaking his windshield. There's one more name in the files. Laura Langley. She's the legal counsel behind Shoreline, and she's close to Nathan. Suddenly, it made sense. Sophie was just the first to fall. Some truths feel heavier the closer you get. For days, I'd carried the weight of Sophie's last plea, of secrets buried at her office, and now the warning on my phone buzzed in my pocket like a wasp ready to sting. I told myself I wasn't afraid. But deep down, I already knew, fear is only useful if you listen to it, and sometimes, you have to walk into the storm anyway. Work became an act, my hands steady but my mind miles away. Every familiar hallway felt like a trap. Caldwell's eyes followed me, as if she could sense the secrets fizzing just beneath my skin. I ducked her questions, told her I'd been keeping to myself, and focused on my patience. But I wondered, was she protecting me or waiting for me to slip? After my shift, I met Elias at a coffee shop across from Sophie's old company headquarters. Rain hammered at the windows. Inside, everything was brittle with the tension of unasked questions. Elias slid his laptop to me. I decrypted more from the drive. You were right, Nathan and Laura were in it together. And there's an email scheduled to go out tonight, wiping all evidence of Shoreline. I felt dizzy, angry. So tonight's our deadline. We need that proof before it disappears. He nodded. I also got this. He handed me a badge, Sophie's old employee pass. You're the only one who'll go unnoticed. I shivered, thinking of Sophie, how she might have felt walking these halls, secrets pressing in at every turn. I'll go in after hours. Watch the cameras and keep your phone on. If I text a code word, call Caldwell. Elias hesitated. You trust her? I shrugged. I trust my instincts. The building was nearly empty when I slipped upstairs, heart pounding so loudly it seemed to echo off the glass. The badge clicked open the side door. Voices echoed from the conference room, Nathan and Laura, arguing in hushed, venomous bursts. Hidden behind a pillar, I caught fragments. She won't stop. Then she disappears, like Sophie did. We erase it all, tonight. I ducked down the hall, Sophie's pass steady in my trembling hand. The IT room was closest. I keyed in, scrolling files, copying everything related to Project Shoreline onto a spare flash drive. A shadow moved at my back. My heart lurched. Nathan stepped in, his face storm-dark. Looking for something, Myra. His voice was all charm and razor edges. I met his stare. I know. About Sophie. About Shoreline. She trusted you. His hand tightened on the doorknob. Trust will get you killed. He motioned for me to give him the drive. In that moment, everything inside me snapped. I ran, ducking beneath his grasp. His footsteps pounded behind me. I bolted for the stairwell, dialing Elias. Now. Get ready. I gasped. Nathan caught me by the arm, but Caldwell's voice cut through the chaos. Let her go, Carter. She stood at the end of the hallway, gun drawn. Nathan's grip slackened. Laura appeared behind him, hand raised in surrender, cold and dangerous. It all broke apart, security pouring in, Caldwell reading Nathan and Laura their rights. My hands were shaking as I handed the flash drive over. Caldwell looked at me, that hard, careful gaze softening just a little. You did good, Myra. But you risked a lot. My voice wobbled. Sophie risked more. When it was over, I found Elias waiting on the curb, shivering, rain mist in his hair. It's not over, he said quietly. I nodded. Not until we know what really happened to her. Not until I see her, not just in pictures, not just in old messages. He looked at me, genuinely, for the first time, no agenda, just another wounded soul searching for meaning. We'll find her, he promised. And for the first time since all of this began, I wanted to believe him. There are nights when your past whispers, and there are mornings when it screams. After days of chasing shadows, I'd finally reached some kind of precipice. One more tip, one more coded message, one final chance. It was just one word on my phone this time. Tomorrow. I didn't know if it was a threat or a guide. But I knew I had to be ready, whatever tomorrow brought. By midday, the investigation at Sophie's company was full-blown chaos. Caldwell updated me. Nathan and Laura were cooperating, under pressure. They have lawyers and excuses, But your evidence boxed them in, she told me quietly. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made me even more uneasy. If they were out of the way, who was still pulling the strings? Elias and I met back at his cramped kitchen, blinds drawn, screens open to all the messages and documents we'd collected. My mind was racing with possibility. Sophie's last video, her encrypted mails, the photograph from the train station. Something tied it all together, but I couldn't see the thread. Elias noticed my restlessness. Let's go over it again, he urged. What's missing? I flipped to a scan of Sophie's torn notebook page. The 22nd of May. Shoreline. No way out but sideways. It hit me. I'd missed something obvious. Sideways. Not an exit at the front, not escape, but maybe an old service passage, a physical sideways route out. I texted Caldwell. Within 2 hours, she'd sent blueprints of the company's old campus. An abandoned maintenance hallway led directly to a loading bay, right beside the train line. Sophie could have escaped through there. Or been taken. Elias and I wasted no time. We followed the map at dusk, winding through alleys grown thick with ivy, slipping in through a rusted-out door. The stale air hit me in the chest. This was where the digital world ended and the physical one, Sophie's last steps, began. My flashlight cut across old footprints, dusty but visible. Near the wall, a set of scuff marks. Someone had tried to scratch a message. E.W. Trust. Myra. My entire body went cold. Sophie had been alive, desperate, fighting to reach me even back then. Check for anything left behind, Elias said softly. Hidden beneath loose boards, we found a battered phone, Sophie's old device. It was dead, but the SIM card was intact. We brought it back to Elias's, working for hours to bypass the security. Finally, my fingers trembling, I opened the last unsent message on Sophie's phone. To Myra. If you find this, I'm sorry. I tried. EW isn't just behind Shoreline. He's everywhere. Don't go alone. Trust Caldwell. They'll be watching you now, too. I'm scared, but I'm not giving up. S. I wept, finally, fully, not just for Sophie but for the girl I had been before all of this, the one who believed endings had to make sense. Elias squeezed my hand and didn't let go. You found her, Myra. You did what no one else would. I nodded, hollow and hopeful at the same time. The next day, Caldwell coordinated a full-scale search of the train lines. At noon, I got another text, from a new number, this one honest, unmistakable. You almost have it. If you want Sophie, come to the South Terminal. 4 p.m. alone. I didn't tell anyone, didn't trust myself enough to risk their safety. I went. South Terminal was abandoned, sun glowing gold through shattered glass. I heard footsteps, then voices. Caldwell was there, gun drawn. Elias, too, refusing to let me go in alone. And then I saw her. Sophie, alive, thinner, trembling, but whole, stepping from behind a concrete column. We ran to each other, clinging, sobbing. Caldwell rushed in, cuffing the man who'd lured us here, EW. Not an executive, not a genius, just a man who'd lied, who'd made everyone believe he was a ghost. It was over. They never tell you what happens after a happy ending. Sometimes, the moment the danger passes is when the real reckoning begins. Holding Sophie's hand at the train terminal, relief and joy flooding through me, I thought that would be enough. But the next day, reality came back, harder and sharper than before. Sophie spent the first night in the hospital, Caldwell and Elias by her side while I sat at the window, watching the city lights flicker and blur. She was so different from the girl I'd lost, older, haunted, but resilient. Her first words were full of guilt. I'm sorry, Myra. For dragging you in. For running. For everything that happened to you. I took her hand, squeezed it just hard enough to make us both laugh. Don't you dare apologize for surviving, I said. You didn't drag me in, you reminded me what matters. She fell asleep before midnight, but I stayed awake, replaying her ordeal over and over. She'd faked her disappearance, gone underground, tried to collect proof against EW and the others. She survived on scraps and fear, trusting no one except the hope that somehow I might figure it out. The police raided Youth's safe house at dawn. Caldwell said he confessed. He'd orchestrated it all, using his connections at the company to blackmail Laura and Nathan, covering his own tracks while letting them take the blame. For the first time, the story that haunted me was in the news. Project Shoreline exposed, arrests made, people whispering my name and Sophie's like we were heroines. Strangers called me brave. Reporters waited outside the hospital for a glimpse of Sophie, of me, of anyone with a piece of the story. But it never felt like victory. I'd lost too much for celebration. Sophie's recovery was slow. She had nightmares, panic attacks. I walked her through them, made tea, listened to her stories from the edges of fear. We sat on my apartment floor, legs tangled in blankets, talking in whispers when we couldn't sleep. One night, she broke down. I thought I'd be free when it was over. But I'm more afraid now than ever. I had no good answers. Just faith that pain was a kind of map, and that as long as we were moving, we hadn't lost. Elias was quieter, too. The stress had worn him thin. He visited daily, but always looked over his shoulder, never sitting near the windows. One evening, as we washed dishes, he finally spoke up. We did the right thing, didn't we? Even if it cost so much. I nodded slowly. We did. Sophie's alive. The truth is out. It has to mean something. He paused, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm leaving the city for a while. To heal. To remember who I was before all of this. It hurt, more than I expected. But I understood. You saved us, Elias. Let yourself heal. He squeezed my shoulder. You're stronger than you think, Myra. The news cycle moved on within days, but the aftershocks lingered. Sophie and I rebuilt in silence. Groceries, bills, old inside jokes returning one by one. I took a leave from the hospital, focused on therapy, on baking bread, on breathing. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to tell me what the next right thing was. I started choosing for myself. I used to think all stories had a neat ending. Now I know that even after victory, some storms simply move underground, waiting, changing, growing quieter but not necessarily weaker. Laura Langley's letter reminded me that when you expose a shadow, it simply hides somewhere else. The final chapter wasn't about running. It was about facing what was left, both outside and within. 4 days, I watched Sophie sleep beside the window in my small apartment, calm at last. But my own peace was a mask. The letter from Laura was the grit inside my wounds, keeping them from ever fully closing. Sophie and I met with Caldwell, sharing the letter. She read it in silence, eyes hardened. Langley hasn't left the country, she said. But there's no proof she did anything beyond company sabotage. For now, she's just a threat, not a criminal. I can live with threats, I answered, surprised at my own steadiness. What I can't live with, what I won't live with, is letting fear control the rest of my life. Sophie and I tried to reclaim normalcy. We bought cheap coffee, picked out new houseplants, went on midnight walks. Sometimes, nightmares would visit her anyway. When they did, I held her hand until she remembered she was safe. Elias kept in touch, sending postcards from mountain towns, places where nobody knew his name or his ghosts. I always read his words at sunset, letting their comfort settle over me. Days became weeks. The city changed with the seasons. Hospital life called me back slowly. I returned to a few shifts, then committed to teaching trauma courses for new nurses. It felt right, and more than anything, it felt like moving forward. One grey evening, Sophie and I baked a cake with too much vanilla and laughed when the oven caught fire. For the first time in forever, the smell of burnt sugar didn't remind me of loss. It reminded me of freedom. One afternoon, a quiet knock brought Caldwell to my door. She wore civilian clothes, her hair softer around her face. "It's done," she said. "Langley took a plea deal. She'll stay away from tech, away from Sophie, from you. It's over." Something inside me, as brittle as old glass, finally gave way. I hugged Caldwell. She didn't protest. "Thank you," I whispered, "for believing me when it counted." She stuttered me. "You believed in yourself first. That's what made the difference. Don't lose that." That night, I lit a candle on my windowsill. For Sophie, for myself, for all the wounded hearts that don't get to choose the battles they fight, but choose anyway to survive. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think you'll ever trust this city again?" I smiled. "Maybe not the city, but I trust us." She smiled too, her eyes bright despite everything. "Promise me we won't let the scars stop us from living." It wasn't a hard promise to make anymore.